Welcome to Gen Z Hoops, the Gen Z basketball, coaching, and sports business show. On this podcast, you'll learn from professional players, coaches, and executives from all over the world and see the court in a brand new way. And now, joining you courtside, your Gen Z host, John Hartofilis.
Hey, Coach Ernest, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, John?
Things are going great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And obviously, having just got back from the G bubble, I know that things have been really crazy for you. And it's so awesome having you on to talk about what the historic thing that just happened at the G League bubble with all the cool things happening there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm excited to share, and I appreciate you inviting me on. So glad we can make it happen.
Awesome. Really quick, what's it like now that you're back from the bubble? Like, do you enjoy life back home? It's gone for 4, 5, 6 weeks. What's it like being back?
I mean, for us, we definitely weren't there as long as the NBA bubble. So I'll say like we were fortunate on that front. But it was still a little bit of an adjustment, like, reintegrating back into society after being, in that closed campus for, 6 weeks, roughly about 6 weeks. For me, it's good to be home and be with the family. So I was definitely excited and looking forward to that. But so now it's just like, reintegrating back. So, it was a little bit awkward driving my car again, for the first time. So that was something that was kind of funny. I'm like, man, I kind of miss driving after not driving and just sitting on a bus, taking trips back and forth to the arena, every day. So that was something that, I didn't realize that freedom, that luxury, that I would miss. But that was something that was kind of funny to me.
It's so funny. It's because it's something I felt kind of when we're in quarantine, March, April, May. I was like, oh my God, like this is what it's like to drive again. Like it's pretty cool. It's funny that it only brings up the little things like that, but it really is kind of what makes you realize all that stuff.
Right.
Kind of jumping into all the work you do. I'm curious, what kind of made you realize that you were really passionate about the athletic performance field? Was it when you were in college studying? Was it maybe even before that? What kind of really sparked that interest for you?
Yeah, for me, growing up and throughout high school and even my elementary years, I've always played sports. I've enjoyed sports, whether that was, playing outside with friends or whether that was watching it on TV. And then, then joining organized sports myself, especially as I went through my high school years. That was just something that's always been a passion of mine. And that along with working out, because, training and working out goes hand in hand with playing sports. I didn't know that there was like a profession where you can actually train athletes growing up. Like, so going through high school, even through my early college years, like I didn't know that there was professions such as strength and conditioning or athletic training and sports medicine. So that wasn't like something that I initially wanted to pursue right after high school, mainly just because I didn't know about it, not because of a lack of interest. So initially for me, I started off as a business major. I thought I was going to be, go into business marketing, make a ton of money, having my own business, like that type of thing. And then actually one of my prerequisites or one of my general education courses that I had to take at a junior college that I was attending was an anatomy course. And through that anatomy course, like it just sparked a passion for me of the human body and all the intricacies of it. So, during that course, I spent a lot of time, studying. I think probably more than I had any other subject throughout my college career. And it was just like, I was just fascinated with it. And I ended up talking to my teacher at the time, or my professor. And I just had a conversation with him. And I was like, hey man, I like really enjoy like this course. I love the way you teach it. Is there any profession, or what are some professions where I can continue to like that are involved in anatomy? And of course he kind of, spit it out, well, you can be a medical doctor, you can be a physician's assistant, you can be, and he went down the list, went to the physical therapy. So that one was like, I was like, oh, okay, actually physical therapy might be down my lane or something that I might be interested in. And then he went to athletic training, and I'm like, oh, hold on, pause. Like, what's athletic training? And so he explained it to me. And at that moment, I was like, that's something that I think I can do for a living. He suggested that I go and visit the athletic training facility there on campus and just kind of shadow them and speak to them a little bit. So I did. And like from that moment, once I stepped in, like I just seen the way that the athletic trainers interacted with the athletes. I seen what they were doing, how they're caring for them, how they're helping them, and how they're just a part of their daily process. For me, I was like, man, this is the coolest thing in the world. It didn't seem like work. I was like, this doesn't even seem like work. It seems like, something that I would do just out of the love, or for, out of my passion. So I decided to pivot from business and focus on athletic training and pursuing that. So I applied to some schools, and that's kind of like what led me there. I went to the University of the Pacific, where I did my bachelor's in athletic training. From there, so I started off in sports med. So I'm kind of going back, but I started off in sports med, and through that time and through some experiences that I had, some internships that I landed, I slowly started to pivot again more towards the sport performance and the athletic performance arena. And so, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. That was all so impactful, because especially, I mean, I see it all the time, being 20 years old and having, still being in college and seeing all my friends switch majors and face uncertainty when it comes to that. Everyone's terrified of doing it. Everyone's afraid of chasing their passion, because they start off with classes that maybe they decided when they were 16, 17 to go down that track. Or maybe, unfortunately, sometimes their parents put them on that track. And maybe everyone's going down that path, and then they kind of are a little afraid to change and find the passion that obviously you decided to change course and chase, which is great. And it's obviously, it must have been a lot of fun when you realized that you could find a profession in something you really liked. Because I remember you had said how you didn't really know you could even do that when you were younger. Right. You could find a profession in athletic training. So I'm kind of curious, kind of going off, you've worn a lot of hats in athletic training. We'll touch on all of them, but I'm curious, just so our listeners know going forward, can you kind of explain the difference between like an athletic trainer, a strength coach, a performance coach? They all come towards a very similar thing with your path, but each very different jobs, duties, and what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So an athletic trainer, I think that's one that people often get confused by, because they think that, oh, you train athletes. Truthfully, like when the professor told me about an athletic training, I was like, oh, cool, you train athletes. And actually, it's not that at all. An athletic trainer is a healthcare professional, and they're responsible for the health, safety of an athlete. So you're responsible for treating them in the case of injuries or in an emergency situation. So you're trained how to handle emergencies as like a first care responder. And then you're also, you have a foundation in rehab and rehabilitation of injuries. So that's another area of athletic training that, people kind of overlook. And it's not to the extent of like a physical therapist where their sole focus is like rehabilitation, but you do have your foundation as an athletic trainer in that, and just trying to prevent injury. So a lot of it's injury prevention. So there's a lot of things that you handle from a medical perspective, whether that be scheduling doctor's appointments or whether that be scheduling surgeries, communicating with the coaches as far as injuries. That all encompasses athletic training, that and more. So you see them stretching and doing the taping and all that type of stuff, putting on ice, all that type of stuff. But at the foundation, they're a healthcare professional. And then as far as strength and conditioning or athletic performance, to me, I think athletic performance is like, it's a newer way of saying strength and conditioning. Strength and conditioning coaches and athletic performance coaches, they basically do the same thing. And that's just for, preparing the athlete for the demands of the sport, making sure that they're fit, that they're strong, making sure that, you're also on the injury prevention standpoint. A lot of times as athletic performance coaches or strength coaches, you're responsible for some of the sports science. You have like a role in sports science, which is now, has a huge importance when it comes to sport. That's the main things. And so strength and conditioning is where you're actually involved with training the athlete. So, you're involved with in the weight room with them. You're involved in nutrition a lot of times. And yeah.
Thank you, because when everyone hears those things, they kind of all group them in as being the exact same, but there's so many different intricacies with each one. I'm curious, obviously wearing all those hats and doing so much, can you kind of explain some of whether it's the internships or jobs that kind of led up to you working with the Reno Bighorns, who would eventually, now we know them as the Stockton Kings, but mm-hmm. What did that journey look like to you to actually get to the G League?
Yeah. So shortly after I graduated from Pacific, I'll kind of work backwards and up into my current role. Shortly after I graduated from the University of the Pacific, I landed an internship with the San Francisco 49ers So that for me, that was my first experience and first really just role working in the professional setting. During that experience for me, that was just like really eye-opening because I was able to see, all the resources that are available at the professional level. That was my first time being a part of working like with a huge staff or a bigger staff than what I was accustomed to, because they're, at the pro level or with the Niners at the time, there was, physical therapists, there was a nutritionist, there was a chiropractor, obviously doctors, and then of course you have your athletic trainers and strength coaches. Truthfully, that was the first time I was exposed or I was able to work alongside a sports scientist, because that was like kind of during the first wave of when sports science became a thing, at least here in the States at that level. And so for me, it was just like an eye-opening experience to just everything that's involved in the team at the pro level. So, coming from a mid-major D1 school, like it was just like, I was just mind blown. And so it was a great experience. I really appreciated, having the people around me that I did, as far as like the staff on the, and that was, for me, I was on the athletic training side. So that I started as an athletic training intern during that position. And then from that position, I actually moved on to the Sacramento Kings. And that's where I was working as an athletic training intern as well. I talked to a lot of students, or I talked to different people that are looking to get their foot in the door at the pro level. And the fact that I was able to land with two pro teams in two different sports, right off the bat, I think it's something that was really unique, and I was very fortunate. And I don't think that happens often. And so I definitely don't take it for granted. But my time with the Kings was completely different because it was a much smaller staff. There was two strength coaches and three athletic trainers at the time. And obviously they had like chiropractors and different people that they outsourced to. But as far as like the main staff, it was only 5 people. That for me, I think really helped me in my growth and just appreciating for me research and continued education. Like now that I think about it, there's 3 of the 5 members of the staff were pursuing their doctorate at the time. So that just kind of, for me, that showed me like, man, even at this level, like they're pushing to do more and to learn more and still hungry to just try to, be at the top of their field. So that was something that I really took away and appreciated from them. After that internship, I got a call from the University of the Pacific where I did my undergrad, and they called me and said, hey, like we're looking to hire a full-time athletic trainer. For me, that was a big deal because I had a family at the time. And so, to be able to land a job where I can, have benefits, have a salary, basically a steady income, and, and be part of, and kind of run my own team too. That was like a huge selling point. So even though I enjoyed my time working with the Kings, it was like, okay, I'm ready to take on a role where I'm running, I guess, the team. And so at that time, I worked 2 years there back at the University of the Pacific as basically the head athletic trainer for men's soccer. And so I really enjoyed that experience because that taught me like, okay, how to improve my communication skills while I was, communicating daily with the head coaches or the coaching staff, and also with the athletic training staff and everybody else and that worked with the athletes. So there was a lot that I had to learn from that standpoint. And I think that really helped me just growing as a professional, just being kind of thrown into the fire a little bit, because I was a year and a half removed from my bachelor's degree when I took that position. After those couple years of working with Pacific, I actually got a call from the Sacramento Kings again. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because it ties in. During my time working with the Sacramento Kings, it piqued my interest about the strength and conditioning side. There was a strength coach there, Ramsey Nijam, that I grew a real close relationship with, and we spent a lot of time just talking about strength and conditioning. There was a lot of things that just interested me, and I thought it fit what my philosophy or the things that I thought were important when it came to the care of an athlete. And so I decided to go and get my strength and conditioning certification. During that time, I was like, okay, I want to get more experience as a strength and conditioning coach, because like I said, I was working as an athletic trainer. So gonna fast forward again. And so while I was at Pacific, I was simultaneously going to different places and volunteering my time as a strength and conditioning coach. So, even though I was working full time as an athletic trainer, I was like, I know that I need experience as a strength coach. Eventually, that's what I want to do. So I was volunteering my time, whether that was early in the morning or late at night. I worked with a junior college and their football team, trying to help them prepare for their season. I worked with a minor league hockey team that was local, and just try to, shadow them whenever I could and work with them whenever I could. And really just trying to get my feet wet and just gain some experience as a strength coach. And I think it paid off. It was a lot of work. It was a grind for sure. But I would have to say it paid off, because I got a call from the Sacramento Kings, and they kind of knew the path that I was on, and they knew that I was putting in work or trying to put in work to get more experience as a strength coach. And so, they called me and told me about the opportunity with the Reno Bighorns. And for me, they said, hey, we have an opening. It'll be the first year. We're going to have a strength coach for the G League team. We wanted to know if you're interested in it. And if you're interested, apply. For me, that was like a huge deal, because I was like, the fact that they reached out to me after I had already left shows that I left a good impression with them. And then two, that they're willing to take a chance on me as a strength coach. It was big. And so I ended up applying, and I got the position. And so I rocked out there in Reno for a year as the strength coach. And I actually was with the Kings organization, functioning as a strength and conditioning coach for 3 years till, what was that, September last year. September last year is when I started my new position, where I'm with the NBA G League's Team Ignite. So that's currently where I'm at, and that's where I just finished the season in the bubble.
It's so cool, and definitely the Ignite is just such a unique team. It's really fascinating to think about where the league is going as a whole, but then to include a team like that really kind of it really got everyone's attention. I'm curious, just because some of our listeners maybe who aren't as familiar with the G League Ignite, or maybe the G League in general, can you kind of explain what makes this team so unique from other teams that are in the G, from all the other teams that have a parent team?
Yeah, this team is extremely unique, mainly because it's currently the first of its kind. The team is comprised of first year removed they're essentially they just graduated high school, and where they decided to skip going to college, so forgo their college career and just immediately enter the professional career. So we have, 4? We started with 5, and one ended up leaving. So we have 4 guys that are on our roster who decided to forgo their career just to enter their professional career in the G League. And then the rest of the team is made up of vets, and some of those vets had long NBA careers, like Amir Johnson, like Jared Jack. We had Bobby Brown, who played overseas, played in the NBA, and they've been in the league and around basketball for a long time. And then we also have some guys that have been in the G League or have played a little bit overseas, but are still they're like midway through their career. So we've had a unique blend of players overall, and so it was just very very different from the other G League teams that I've worked with. And I mean, it's even different than some NBA teams because of the age gap. I had a guy that just turned 18, and then I had a guy that I worked with that and Jared Jack, who's 37. So it's a huge age gap. So it was it's something that was definitely different. I think the challenge was definitely I think it was a challenge for sure, and I appreciated it, because I think it made me better as a coach on how to relate and how to train these different age groups, are all in one setting. It was it was very unique. I mean, I appreciate it. I think it was a great experience overall.
I find it fascinating looking at how there's only one player in Amir Johnson who's between the ages of 28 and 36. He's the only one at 33. Everyone else is either Jared Jack and other guys that are 36, 37, or the younger guys like Jalen Green and people like that who are between the ages of like 18 and 22. More of that Gen Z mold. Did you know, but that kind of generational gap being so apparent, being that there's no real middle age group, was that a lot of fun in the locker room? Was there a big divide? Some guys that are posting on Instagram, other guys don't know what Instagram is. Did you kind of see that at all?
Yeah, no, it was definitely fun in the locker room. The the way that I first seen the generational gap was honestly through the music. Through the music music choice through in practice or in the weight room, and it was just funny to kind of watch and see. And it was like looking at the vets when they played their music, and it would be maybe some old school Jay-Z or some different older artists from the '90s, and then these young guys, the young fellas, were just looking at them like, what is this? And then vice versa. They play some music, some new music they found off TikTok or wherever. And then these, the vets are looking at them like, all right. But at the end of the day, everybody, we kind of just it was funny because we kind of just let the young fellas rock with their music. And the old guys ended up listening to that. And then the young guys, it was a good blend. I mean, that was something that was just funny for me to see. But I think as far as in the locker room, it was, it was great for the young guys to have vets like that, because I mean these are guys who have been where they wanted to go or where they want to go, so they had a lot of wisdom to impart on the young fellas. And I think it was that was something that was seen every day, whether that be at practice or in film, team meetings, the game, during the game, before the game, after the game, that you just seen the way that our vets kind of took the young guys under their wing. And to me, that was just something that was super cool to see, because it was just like, it was a constant mentorship. I think the vets that we had were, the way that our management picked them out, I felt like it couldn't have been a better group. And yeah, so it was really cool to see. And I mean, I even appreciated it appreciated our vets from just their habits that they showed in as far as taking care of their body. Like for me, Amir Johnson was like a perfect example of, what to do as a professional. And that really helped me. And that echoed, what I was trying to preach to our young guys, because they weren't exposed to some of these things, as far as like some of these recovery methods or some of the training. So having somebody that had been in the league and has done it for a long time, and you see that he's taken these necessary steps on a daily basis to take care of his body and to keep him going. Like it showed our guys, like, if Amir, like towards the end of our bubble, like there was a couple days where Amir might have skipped the ice bath, and our young guys was like, where's Amir at? And it's like, it just showed that, okay, like they were so used to seeing him do everything every day. It was just like, it showed that, okay, this is part of what I'm supposed to do as a professional. And it just really helped and made it easy for us as a staff.
It's so key, because everyone kind of gets caught up in the young guys on the G League Ignite team, but it's so important to think about what the older guys can do, can kind of help them get through that and develop. Thinking of Jarrett Jack, it's funny because when you said his name, I just imagined him in like 7 different jerseys. So no one really knows the grind of the NBA better than Jarrett Jack. Just in my head, I was like, okay, wait, there's that team. It was really just, I couldn't picture where I kind of, my best memories of Jarrett Jack are really, he's one of those guys that knows that what the league is like and going through it. So it's great to think of him as a perfect choice to be able to lead this team.
Right.
Before we get into all these players and what makes them all unique and where you're looking to see them go, both now that the season has concluded and moving and going forward, I'm curious, what was your day-to-day looking like in the bubble? Was it different from what you've done in the past? Was it kind of more of the same thing? What did that kind of bubble life look like for you?
Oh man, it was much different than what I've done in the past. So essentially every day for us, we had to go down. Like for me, the first thing in the morning, I would go down to the clinic or the room where we would go get COVID tested, because we COVID tested every day. So every day we would have to go do our COVID test. We would have to, do our daily symptom checklist, our questionnaire. So that was kind of like our routine. And then from there, it all depended on whether it was a game day or a off day / practice day. And because of the condensed schedule, like that was like, it was really only game day or practice day. And so, practice, or I'll just kind of walk you through a game day. So for a game day for us, after getting tested, we might go to breakfast, see some of the players getting breakfast and whatnot. And right after that, we would have, team film, say at like 9 o'clock. And so, from 9 to 10, or 9 to 9:30, we might go over film and just kind of watch, either the previous game or the game coming up, or not the game coming up, but the opponent that we're going to be seeing coming up. And then from there, we would go to the courts every day. If it was a game day, you had an hour slot, a time slot, where you would have your shoot around essentially. And so, guys would put up shots. So, I would warm them up, go through a quick warm up, and then they would go ahead and put some shots up, go over some schemes and whatnot, maybe go over some offensive schemes, defensive schemes. And then there would just be a period where they just, get up as many shots as you can, just to try to get them loose and feeling comfortable and get them feeling the ball a little bit. After that, some of the guys, it was always like, for me, I never wanted to force anything because it was such a condensed schedule. But, some of the guys would train after shoot around, and, whether we're doing some like mobility or some stretching or a little bit of lifting, that was kind of like the routine for some of our guys. And to me, it was good to see that actually picked up, and I got more guys doing that towards the end, where typically it might be the reverse. You might start off real strong, and then, later on down the line, it will trickle down. But to see like guys starting to do that more, especially towards the end, that was good for me to see, just that our guys were, practicing some good habits. From there, guys would go and maybe they would take a little nap before our game, or just go get off their feet for a few hours. For us, we had a lot of 3 o'clock games. So, it was a short break. So they would, try to go back to their room, take a little break. And that's when I would, take a few minutes for myself, kind of preparing, grabbing everything that I needed for the game. And then because I have that athletic training background, I also assisted our head athletic trainer when it came to treatments. And being in a bubble and playing that many games, there was a lot of times where I did assist with a lot of treatments because, you're not doing a ton of heavy training or heavy weight training. So for me, it was like, okay, where can I provide some value? Where can I help our team? And for me, I thought that, helping out with treatments and helping our athletic trainer was where I could do that. So I would help out with our athletic trainer doing treatments for a couple of hours prior to the bus. And I would be on that first bus, that early bus, to get to the arena to set everything up, whether that's like our little fuel station for the game, setting up, our activation area, and just kind of preparing and just kind of making sure that once the guys arrive, that, they got everything that they need from an athletic performance standpoint. We would have our activation group, and then we'd have our court group, and we kind of rotate through that. Then it would become then it's time for game, and we'd play our game. After the game, we have our window of recovery. So we have, whether that's doing cold baths or whether that's doing straight stretching or treatments or whatever they need, we'd have that window after the game, and then by that time it's like time for dinner and everybody's shutting it down. So it was almost like Groundhog Day. You're doing that, pretty much every day, and if it's not that, it's a practice day. So yeah, but that's pretty much it right there.
It's incredible to think about, and thank you for going so in depth on what you're doing in there in the bubble. Obviously, just a historic thing in the bubble in general, but also the first season of G League Ignite, which is really cool to think about. Obviously, I would imagine everyone asks you about the same 2 guys over and over again because they're such stars in their class, and really making strides. The first one I want to touch on is Jalen Green, who's the number one by almost all rankings in the class of 2020 from high school for high schoolers, and he was playing with a few guys in the bubble. What did you kind of see maybe just maybe off like maybe outside of, like maybe in practice, maybe outside of the games, that really made you think that he'll really translate well to the next level, and through working with him makes you confident about the next steps for him?
I think with Jalen, for me, the thing, and me and him had some good conversations, and like one thing that I told him is that, like, outside of his playmaking ability and his what he does on court, for me, the thing that stands out with him, and I think will translate well for him having I think not just a great first year, but just a great NBA career overall, is his approach to the game. I think the mental side of basketball, and just how he approaches it is truly amazing. For me, I've seen him, have a bad first half in a game, or what we would call a bad first half in the game, and, coaches coaching him up and, kind of, you know, pointing him out and saying, look, man, I need you to step up on these areas, da, 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 da. And where, being a young guy in a locker room at the pro level, you might kind of take that and get defensive and maybe shell up and not do well. Like I seen him take that challenge head on and just go on and have a great second half. And, there was some loss. We took some bad losses in the bubble. I don't know if you were following, we had a couple that, where, we lost by quite a bit, and it was a rough game for us all around. I seen him, stand up and say, man, we got another one coming up. We're going to be all right. Like kind of being the vocal one. And to me, I'm like, for you to be 19 in a locker room full of guys much older than you who have been in the NBA, and for you to stand up and immediately show that you're ready to respond in the next game. Like, I think that was just like amazing to see. And outside of that, like just the way that he approaches practice, like I think he's a competitor. And so like, seeing him wanting to win every shooting contest that we had at practice and wanting to, just do his best when even during practice or, during his court time, being real, having a lot of intent in the movements and what he was practicing. To me, I think like that type of stuff is what sets you apart as a professional. And I think that's going to take him a long way. And so like, I really, I got excited seeing that.
It's great to think of how someone at such a young age can step up and assume that leadership role. Kind of off the same topic, when thinking about maybe Johnathan Kumiinga or some of these other guys, I'm curious as to if you really saw them at being 18, 19 years old, playing up against all these older seasoned G League guys. How did you see them developing in there, and how good do you think that was for them as opposed to maybe the college route where they'd be going against guys their own age and really seeing what a pro game is like while in the bubble?
I've seen every one of them just improve and get better throughout their time there. I think some of them had better games than others, and that's to be expected. Like, for all of them to have a good game at the same time, it'd be tough. And that just goes for all of our players. Like there's, sometimes our vets would play really well, and sometimes our young guys would play well. And, so that was just something that, it just comes with the game. But I seen all of them improve. And I think that, if you would have seen them from when they stepped into Walnut Creek, when we first started training, up until when we first went through our scrimmages, up until our last games or our last few games, anybody could see, anybody that watches and knows basketball could see the progression for these guys. And the fact that they were able to do what they did for each of them against pros, guys who have been in the NBA, or guys that have just gotten drafted, some of the top guys from their respective colleges, it was truly impressive. And to do that at 19 after just playing high school, or the year before, like I think it was just something that I think, it caught all of us by surprise. And even though we didn't win the championship and we didn't win all our games and we didn't, we might not have done all these things, I think as collectively as a group, we would say that the season was a success because each of them have gotten better. There's different things or different areas of their game where all of them have improved. So for me, that was something that was, truly exciting to see.
Awesome. And to wrap things up, I'm curious about the future of G League Ignite, because obviously it's in its first season, like you said, it was a success because all these players got better. They got looks on a major stage. They played against some really good competition. Mm-hmm. I'm curious as to what do you see the G League Ignite going? Because with all these guys, hopefully their goal to make it to the NBA and get drafted this coming year. What does that mean for it? Because everyone always talks about roster turnover. What does that mean? What is the G League Ignite roster going to look like next season? What is the outlook for making G League Ignite being a concept that can continue and really maybe even making more of the teams like this for elite high school prospects?
Truthfully, I don't know exactly like what it looks like. Like I couldn't tell you. I think that, the vision for the leadership with the NBA and the leadership with the G League is that of course they want to see it expand. They probably want to see multiple teams like this, like Team Ignite, where we have, elite prospects that are soon to be drafted. I think as far as like the immediate, what we'll see is, I think we'll see, the same thing. The plan from my understanding is, there's going to be a new cohort or a new group of young guys that'll be joining this next year. And, some of the vets might remain, some of them, might go pursue other opportunities. That kind of just depends on how they, I guess what opportunities lie ahead for them. But I think it'll be real similar to what you've seen, minus all of the COVID restrictions and all the things that, COVID kind of inhibited with us this year. But I think for the future, I think it's really endless. I think of the potential for it, because I think it was shown this year to be such a success that there's no doubt that, this thing could grow out and this thing could be something that is truly special. And so, I'm excited to see where it goes from here. I don't know exactly, like I don't have the answers, and I know the leadership, they definitely have their vision and what they want to see. But for me, I'm just excited to be a part of the process. So.
Great. And it's really just thinking about what the future might hold, or what could happen with such an awesome idea, and how this thing can grow even more is just really awesome to think about. And Coach Ernest, thank you so much for coming on the show, because I mean, especially the detail you went into with whether it's your career, whether it's what's happening now in the G League, what you do day to day, was so insightful for both me and obviously for our listeners who might want to do that someday. And it's incredible to think of the path you took. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, and glad I could share a little bit and hope somebody, took something away from it, got some value from it.
Thanks for listening to Gen Z Hoops. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all major social media platforms at Gen Z Hoops. You can tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other podcast platform on the planet. Get ready for the next episode.